Hello, and thank you for joining us today at the Bramble Patch. My name is Wendy, and today on Technicals we've got Alicia. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on foundation piecing, but it's not traditional foundation piecing. We'll be going to do it using freezer paper, so that you don't sew through the paper and it's easy to remove. So there's no paper to take out through the stitches. So first of all, I'm going to show you the two blocks that I've got made up. There will be a download later on with the instructions and the two block patterns that I've designed. So first of all, I'll show you the blocks that I've made. So this is the first block here. Okay. And it's a very, very simple one. When you put it together in different layouts, if we, for instance, was to do a layout with 4, you can actually make it look like a flower. Like so. Actually really effective and very, very simple. I've done it like this, so the paper is still actually left on the back of this one. And all I'm going to do is just show you how easy it is to remove. So like I say, I haven't sewn through the paper. So if I just take the paper and just lift it off, you can probably hear it coming away, like so. There's no residue left on here at all. This pattern can now be reused several times. The quilts you can see behind me are all the New York Beauties. I made these two quilts using this technique, and I only made one template of every pattern to do the whole quilt. And you can see how precise the points are. They're really fun to do. So that's the first one. So there will be a download for this particular pattern, and it's a really good one to get started on to give you your confidence and realise how easy it is. The second one I'm going to show you is one that I designed, which is inspired by Art Deco. And here you can see it. I'm hoping that maybe the cameras will pick this up for you. So I've actually done, this is 3 blocks, and all I've done is just put triangles on the infill. So this actually will be a little wall hanging. But likewise, you can do it for a quilt or anything else, lovely bag panels. Again, very, very easy to do. So this is the block I'm actually going to demonstrate to you. So I'm talking about freezer paper. Freezer paper was originally designed to wrap your food in, to go in the freezer, and it doesn't actually stick to your food. On the boxes now, it does actually state that it can be used for easy, quick applique on here, okay? This you can buy from supermarkets. Any patchwork shop will sell it. You can buy it by the box. Ours is £7.50, or you can buy it for the meterage from us as well. So it's very inexpensive. My first box lasted me 20 years, and I do use this technique an awful lot. So it goes a long, long way, because you don't have to actually draw a new block out every time you want to do a block. You just reuse it, okay? So to start off with, all you need to do is actually trace the patchwork pattern onto the smooth side of the freezer paper. So this is the dry side of the paper, and it just looks like normal paper. So I just drew my pattern out on that. If I turn it over, I'm hoping the camera will pick up that it's actually shiny. Okay, so that's the shiny side, all right? What I've done then, I've actually drew the pattern out on the paper, and I've numbered one side, and I've lettered the opposite block. So here where I've got 1, this will be my first piece of fabric I'll use. Then I'll move on to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. This side, I've got A, B, C, D, E, and so forth. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to show you how to start on the small side, okay? So all I'm going to do, I'm just actually going to cut this because I don't actually need it to be all in one piece. Oh, there we go. That's the best. And then I'm just going to flip this board over so I've got the cutting side for this one. Like so. So I'm hoping that you can actually see what I'll be doing. Okay, so this is the side, the smallest side that I'm going to be working on. Now, I've cut a generous space around the edge. So I usually leave about 1/2 inch, okay. On the inner side, I'm actually going to trim this on the drawn line because I want to join this to the other part of the block. So all I'm going to do is take my rotary cutter. Normally I use one rotary cutter for paper and one for fabric. But on this occasion, I'll just whip straight down there. Like so. So what I'm going to do now, if you can see, I have actually stitched on every single drawn line. So I've stitched blind. So take the thread out of your machine and stitch along all the drawn lines. Okay, this is called blind stitching. And what I do is I increase the length of the stitch. I don't want it too tiny because we don't want the paper to fall apart. If you lengthen the stitch, stitch all the way back, but do remember to reset the stitch to your normal sewing length when you start. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to put a black one on here. Generally, I actually write the colours on. I didn't want to do that on this one because I didn't want to confuse you with too many colours, just in case it's something you might want to do, but use a different colourway. So the first one is A that I'm going to be working with, and I know that is a black piece of fabric. So if I take my black piece of fabric, like so, and I'm going to lay that on my ironing pad. Okay, so the mat I'm using now, this is a woolen ironing mat. It's really good because it's a natural fibre. It heats from both sides, so it presses both sides at the same time. So it's a really good mat to use. All right. Now, where I have actually stitched on the line, it's given like a perforation to it. So it means it actually folds back really easily, like so. You may choose to actually press it all open on the lines so that it just flips back easily before you start. Okay. All I need to do now, if I move that so you can see properly, I'm going to place the main body of the first unit I'm using, which is A. I'm placing that on the fabric, on the wrong side of the fabric, okay, approximately 1/4 inch away from the edge, like so. If you're in doubt, just be a little bit generous, all right? And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to press the freezer paper onto my fabric, like so, okay? Doesn't matter if you get this on your ironing board, your ironing pad, anything, it leaves no residue whatsoever. So it just lifts off, but you can see the fabric is actually adhered to it. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll this paper back to that perforation, like so, and I'll take my ruler, place the 1/4 inch line along the folded edge of the fabric, and I'm just going to trim that off, like so. What I'm going to do then, I'm going to take my next colour, which I know is a pale yellow. And I'll lay that right side up, and I will lay the black fabric onto it. Now, if the edges doesn't meet, it doesn't matter, you can tidy that up, but these edges are cut straight, so it's fine. So I don't pin, I just go directly to the sewing machine. So all I'm going to do now, I'm going to sew down the edge of the paper. So I'm not sewing through the paper, I'm sewing through the edge of the paper. So I'm just going to take it to the machine. And I don't start where the first perforation is, I start beyond that and then just run straight off the other end. So I'm going to take this straight to the sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch that straight down. There we go. So I've just lowered my needle into it. And I've got a wire on top of my foot pedal. There we go. So I'm just going to stitch down the side of that paper. If you happen to catch the paper, it doesn't matter because it will just come away anyway. It's not a problem at all. So I'm just going to stitch down the side of that paper and I'm just going to run beyond that, like so. Now, if you do feel that you haven't got it quite right and you want to retrim that, that's fine, it's not a problem. Just take that slither off, like so. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to push the paper over, like so, and I'm going to pick the first piece and the paper up and fold it back. Now I'm going to press this completely to the paper, okay? There we go. If you feel that you don't trust the freezer paper holding it in place, if you want to pop a pin in it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But I would suggest using a pin that has a flat head to it, because if you've got one with a little ball on the end, it will keep catching on the iron and then you mark your fabric. If you use a flat one and actually pin it on the paper side of your work, you're not going to iron over it because some of these melt and the colour can actually come off then, okay? So all I'm going to do now is just take that and then just give that another little press. What I need to do now is I'm going to roll this back and fold it on the next perforation line that goes straight the way down, like so, all right? And I'm going to once again lay my ruler on the 1/4 of an inch line on the edge of the paper. And I'm just going to take this off, like so. Now what I need to do is to fold. So we've gone A, B, we're now on to C. So we need to fold on the C line here. And because we've perforated it, it makes it much easier to fold back. So we've just folded it back like so. And once again, just use your ruler, 1/4 of an edge line on the edge of your paper and just straight the way across. Okay, so now we're ready to sew the piece of fabric that covers C, which is a black one. So I've got all sorts of bits and bobs here. So all I'm going to do is once again lay the right side facing up and I'm going to lay that edge on there. Now the fabrics I'm using today are Wiltshire by Liberty. It's gorgeous fabric to use. I've used it in so many things. So once again, I'm just going to lower the needle into my work and just sew along the edge of the paper just here. Just like I said before, push the paper over, then roll it back and push it like so. All I'm going to do now is just give that a press. Okay. If I lay it right side down with the fabric on the table, and I'm just going to roll that back once again here quarter-inch seam and just trim it off. Once I've done the next one, you'll see the pattern emerging. Okay, so we're now on to the next colour, which I happen to know is the strong yellow. Okay, so, oops, got two here. So right side fabric up, lay your fabric on top, and if you've got a straight edge, you might as well level it up. I'm going to take it and I'm going to sew from here all the way along to here, just to the edge of the freezer paper. So here we go. Oh, doesn't quite cut. There we go. Okay. So roll the freezer paper over flat, lift that up, tuck it under, push it down, and we've got the next one in line. Give it another little press. I don't use water in the iron when I do this. I do use a dry iron. There we go. So turn it over once again, and we are going to fold it on the next line, like so. Trim. You'd be amazed what lovely designs you can make using this technique out of little bits and bobs, really. So I'm just going to fold this one over on E, give it a little finger press, ruler, and there we go. Okay, so now I'm ready for the black. So I'll just put one more strip on and then I'll move on to the next section. So just a little piece of black fabric I have here. Okay, so fabric right side up. We can see the lovely design on it. We're going to lay this one on top. And because the edges are straight, I may as well use them to the advantage. I'm just going to sew from here all the way along here. When you're using freezer paper, to start with, it's a little bit tacky under the foot of the sewing machine. Now, I have actually got a Teflon foot. You can use Teflon feet on sewing machines, and they're actually brilliant to work with PVC, freezer paper, leather. It actually stops it clinging, it just glides. But once again, I don't want to use anything too fancy because people think, I can't do that technique because, you know, I can't afford the £20 or whatever, or I don't want to spend £20 on a foot I'm not going to use very much. So actually I'm just doing this to prove you can use a normal foot with it. If you find it does stick a little bit, just take your speed down, okay? All I'm going to do now is lift that up, push that over and press. Now, I'm hoping that you can actually see the design starting to come through, okay? And it really doesn't take very long. It does build up, okay? And quite often, if I'm doing a group of blocks, so say the 3 that I've already done on the little runner, that wall hanging I'm going to do, I will actually do the same piece on all 3, then move on to the next colour. So it's like speed piecing, and you know then that everything's going through at the same rate and all your blocks are finished at the same time. It's really, really speedy doing it that way. Okay, so that's the block that we've got so far. So over here, I have already prepared the other side of the block. Okay, So the reason at the beginning I suggested we take the edge of this one off is because we want to join it to the other block, okay? And I don't want to stitch through the paper because I want to make sure I can use these papers again and again and again, all right? Saves draw them out. And also you can use freezer paper to print on if you have an inkjet printer, but do check the instructions in your printer just to make sure that it will actually take it without being a problem. And remember, it's always the smooth, dry side, not the shiny side that you print on. Okay, so all I've done with this one is I have pinned just to the corner of the bottom line, and I've come out on the other side and made sure that I've gone in on the bottom drawn line and come out on the other side. That way I know that I haven't got the fabric twisted or skewed in any way, and I know it's going to go through. Now, to be honest, a couple of pins would hold it fine, no problem. However, I want to make sure when I sew that I'm not going to nip the edge of the paper. So I do just put a few pins just to hold everything in position so I know it's going to work really nicely, all right? Before I do this, I trim all the edges off to 1/4 inch, okay? So it's all nice and flat. So all I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and once again, I'm sewing to the edge of the freezer paper all the way down to join these two sections of the block together. There we go. So I'll just remove that first one, and I'm just going to lower that down. So I'm just sewing to the edge of the freezer paper, just like I've been doing all the way through this technique. So now you can see I've sewn, if I just lift this up, you can see the seam all the way here that I've sewn. So all that leaves now for me to do is actually to remove the paper. Now, if you've done traditional foundation piecing, you would have to remove each section at a time, okay? This technique, this pattern works beautifully with traditional foundation piecing because I've done it, okay? It goes through really, really nicely. The only problem is, because of the tiny triangles, it does take a little while to remove the paper, and you do need to be careful not to pull it too hard and distort the stitches in any way. So all I'm going to do now is remove the freezer paper. So I'm just going to take the pin out, and all I'm going to do is just lift this and just peel it away. So you can see sometimes it does leave the odd fibre on here. All you've got to do is just scratch it away, okay? And just turn it over and just do exactly the same on the other side, like so. All that remains to be seen now is to open it up. And if we just open that up, like so, and I'll just give that a little press where I've done that final seam. Just going to press that into the centre. Now, there we go. You can hopefully see how that's built up. All that needs now is just a triangle stitching along here on the bottom to square that up. And then that will give us one of the identical blocks that I've used to actually make there. And they really are very effective. Likewise, if I was to put this, I'm going to move this, Alicia. If I start to actually put these around, you could probably imagine you could have a black square here and these all coming out, and then make a lovely centre table piece. Really effective. Look lovely in other colours. I've done them in whites, pinks and purples. I've done them in aquas and jades and lemons. They are so much fun to do, and you really don't need very much fabric to do it with, actually. So I'm hoping you can see all of those. Just lay them there for you. Like I say, there will be instructions and a pattern for each of the blocks I've shown you today on the website. So thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you from myself, Wendy, Alicia, and the rest of the Bramble Patch team. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.